on Facebook. Hello, everyone who is joining us. We'll just give it a few more minutes while people are settling in and joining us on Facebook as well. Perfect. All right, and we are live on Facebook as well. So hello, everyone. Welcome to our second edition of Let's Talk in partnership with Making It Awkward. My name is Sophie Hinch, and I'm the Education and Public Programs Coordinator at the Art Gallery of Windsor. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that while this conversation is happening digitally, I want to recognize that I'm physically situated on Anishinaabe territory, the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nation, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi. Today, the Anishinaabe of the Three Fires Confederacy are represented by Walpole Island First Nation, and we want to state our respect for the historical and ongoing authority of Walpole Island First Nation over its territory. Just a few bits of housekeeping before we get going. If at any point tonight you have any questions for our panelists, please use the Q&A function to ask your questions. You can also interact in the chat. There will be a question and answers period towards the end of the panel, so feel free to use that function. This panel is also being recorded and streamed live on Facebook. So thank you to everyone who's tuning in on Facebook Live. The recording will also be available after this event on our YouTube channel. The AGW recognizes our responsibility to serve the community and the role we play in dismantling systems that have caused pain in our community. And as an institution, we are committed to working with and supporting on a continued basis BIPOC curators, artists, activists, educators, and entrepreneurs. And we strongly encourage you to join us as we continue to learn, grow, and listen together. Cultural institutions have a duty to amplify BIPOC voices and lived experiences. And now more than ever, we need moments of joy. We need art, we need music, we need community, we need theater, we need dance. We can have meaningful conversations through art, and these conversations and next steps are a work in progress. To help us get uncomfortable and to break through the decorum of political correctness, the AGW has partnered with Making It Awkward. And now I will pass it over to MIA's co-chair, Princess, to introduce herself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sophie. And thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Princess Though. I am one of the co-chairs for Making It Awkward. We are a student-led social advocacy group based at the University of Windsor that aims to push critical discourse in building capacity to address anti-Black racism within the Windsor-Essex community. And so one of the many ways we achieve this goal is by hosting, presenting, and organizing educational events such as lectures, symposiums, and panels like the one that we're on today, which is why we are so pleased to be partnering up again with Sophie and the Art Gallery of Windsor and hosting the second edition of this Let's Talk panel. As the pandemic continues on, it has been the arts, and in particularly Black art, that has been our primary source to get us through these unprecedented times. And in this Black History Month, where we reflect on the legacy of Black art and what racism has looked like within the arts community, it's imperative to look at Black futures and how we curate continued inclusive environments and celebrating our culture and art, which starts with supporting our Black youth artists. So thank you everyone for joining us. And now I will pass the virtual floor over to MIA's BSW student and moderator for tonight, Jessica.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Bona-Mensah. I'm currently in my final year of the social work program at the University of Windsor. I'm completing my placement with Making It Awkward, Challenging Anti-Black Racism. I will be moderating tonight's discussion. The purpose of this event is to foster discussion and explore the ways in which art can be used to engage youth, affect social change, and celebrate the legacy of Black art in Windsor and the Essex County and beyond.
I will quickly introduce our panelists for this evening. We are joined by TJ Travis, who is a community artist and the executive director of ArtSite Inc. We are also joined by Christopher Elizabeth, who is a poet and a performer and a wonderful artist. We are also joined by Sasha Senior, who is an amazing artist and the owner of Bliss Skateboard Shop. And we are still waiting on Moya McAllister, who is trying to join us. She is a youth mentor and community activist as well. So we have a great lineup for you tonight. Jessica, back over to you.
Okay, well, let's get started. Black youth are often encouraged by their parents and peers to pursue traditional careers. Also, society often ignores and does not credit Black artists, creators, and performers or entrepreneurs. How do we engage and encourage youth to participate in the arts? Is it a question of access, quality, or support? Anyone feel free to talk.
I'll jump in. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's all of the above. There has to be access. There has to be, and that quality has to be there. Traditionally, there have been a lack of opportunities for folks of the BIPOC community. Things are starting to shift a little bit, but not quick enough, and not with enough meeting. And many of us are rallying to do so. We need to make sure that we are amping up our mentorship programs. Because there's folks like myself who've busted through into an executive position with an arts organization. Now I can kick that door open and start to pull people in behind me. But I mean, this is something that's just starting right now, and my responsibility in that role is to make sure that there are those access points, and that it's quality programming. We have to make sure that we are providing the best to the best so that they continue to project that greatness into the world.
I definitely agree with what TJ was saying. It's especially in terms of access to being able to do these arts, because if you don't have the access to do it, then you're not going to be able to express it to the fullest ability of yourself being able to express it, right? You might go somewhere and maybe there's not enough I don't know, paintbrushes or something, or art supplies or whatever the case is, or maybe even in terms of the BIPOC community, you don't see anyone that looks like yourself, so you get a little bit discouraged. So the access is definitely important. I think that how we can make a difference in the community is by putting ourselves out there and giving access as well, right? And being a role model for those who are interested in getting into the arts.
And to speak on a little further, like I agree with everything else. And another big thing is like in school we don't see Blackness in history through art, like through an artistic lens. We're always looking at it through like a European lens, and that goes for every form of art. Like we're taught, like we know all the European movements. I don't know any movements anywhere else. I wasn't taught that. And the same goes with music. Like Black musicians have been such a pioneer in music. And it's the reason why we have the music that we listen to today. If we didn't have like Scott Joplin doing ragtime, we wouldn't be listening to rock and roll or hip hop or any other genre that we listen to these days.
I'd like to chime in just one more time to also express and bring to the conversation the resilience of BIPOC community. Growing up, we didn't have access to stuff, but that didn't stop us from being artists, and it didn't stop us from also showing that excellence to the world. As we know, no nobody is bootlegged like the way that Black folks are bootlegged. Our creativity has been bought and sold over and over again, and very few times do we benefit from it. So I just want to make sure that we are giving the utmost respect to the resilience of BIPOC community, Black and Indigenous folk who have busted through these oppressive systems of whiteness to really forge a path. And I mean, going back to ragtime, blues, jazz, gospel, everything that brought soul, to the majority of the whiteness of this continent is very important. And it's also important that we are remembering and paying homage and respect to the indigenous peoples of this land who set this land ablaze with dance and music and culture. So I want to make sure that the shadow of whiteness doesn't overwhelm the quality and the contributions of blackness and indigeneity, because it is strong, it's here, it's fierce, and it really sets the standard for excellence on this continent and around the world.
Yeah, I just wanted to actually add to the two comments that were just made in terms of I feel that due to the hardships that a lot of BIPOC people have gone through, that has actually birthed the creativity, because it has been such a difficult thing. And I feel like from being put in such a difficult position, that's where the creativity kind of sprung out, and you get that expression from, maybe you're being angry over a certain situation or whatever the case is, during that time. And then also wanted to talk about the learning about the arts. It's so true. And me personally, when I was growing up and I was learning about history class, I really didn't care. I didn't care about history class. I didn't care about politics or anything like that, because I didn't see myself. I didn't see myself in World War I when they were showing the soldiers doing whatever else. Come to find out years later, there was lots of soldiers. There was lots of Black soldiers who participated in that, but they didn't teach you that in history class though, right? So that is something that is extremely important. There needs to be more representation of us so that we're not discouraged. And I'm glad that a lot of people are starting to wake up and we are more represented now.
Hi, everyone. Sorry again for being delayed here, but I just want to jump in really quickly. I think it's really important, especially for youth with newcomers to Canada as parents, to really embrace their cultural arts, especially I think that was one thing that my family, I'm so happy they did. Both my parents are from Trinidad. They came to Canada in the 70s, and I had to learn how to play the steel drums. Like, my parents were that was one thing that I had to do. It brought them, it just gave them life to watch me play an instrument that they grew up listening to. And that's what got me excited about music. That's what got me excited about the arts. And then from there, I started playing piano. I think I started playing when I was 5. My dad played, so I watched him. And then I was like, Mom, I want to play piano. And then that's how I got into music and singing and everything like that. So if it starts at home, if it starts with like getting to know your own culture and all of that, all of the arts and music and dance that's involved with it, I think that's a great way to kind of bring that into our youth. So I just wish more parents would do that and bring that, bring the arts into the home at a young age.
Yeah, if I can just touch on that as well. I find that in Canada, that with first generation Canadians, so like my background is Jamaican, and I find that for me anyways, with first generation Canadians, that for those who, their parents have come from a different country and come here, I've found that a lot of the times the culture is still kept in the home, which I think is awesome to appreciate. That's sweet that you played the steel drums. Like, that's so cool. I grew up on a Sunday morning listening to Bob Marley while we were cleaning the house, or like just different types of foods that my mom would cook at home. And I find that extremely important for things to start from home. But I feel like in Canada too, it's like, embrace your culture, embrace your background culture and your ethnicity, but still be Canadian, still have that mac and cheese with ketchup and hot dogs, and then, still have your food that you eat at home too. So I like that we have that balance. But at the same time, there's also people who come from a different country and they feel very intimidated. They want to fit in more. So they want to try to forget their culture and they want to be more Canadian. And so, yeah, we definitely have to keep those grassroots, because that's what's going to keep the culture coming and keep encouraging kids to be themselves and then take a part in the arts and that kind of thing.
Yes, you guys have all made good points. I'm gonna shift gears a little bit, and I'm gonna actually ask this question to Christopher. But you guys are all free to jump in. Describe what it means to he colonized Shakespeare and why is it important?
Okay, so first I'd like to kind of I actually wrote notes for this question because I love talking about this. So first, like Shakespeare is put on a very high pedestal. When he was being first performed, he was being performed to people who were drunk, and all the jokes had to be really obvious to those people. And now he's perceived as this extremely high artist, which I'm not saying he's not like a talented writer or anything, but we put him on this pedestal and call him the number one like the number one writer of all time, the best writer, the best storyteller, and that perpetuates that like the best person in a category belongs to a white man, and his work has been used in colonization, and it still is. It was used as a tool, like they let me slow down. In 1752, colonizers performed Othello for, I believe it was Cherokee peoples, and because of their reaction, because they didn't get it, the colonizers decided, hey, if these people don't get Shakespeare, what makes them deserve rights? Like, they're too stupid to get this? Really? You don't get Othello? And it's been used so to take them, like, to take their agency away. And we still kind of hold people to that standard in the classroom, where if you don't understand Shakespeare, you're not moving up to the next grade. You're not like, I'm lucky that I grew up in the generation I did because I needed SparkNotes to understand Shakespeare. And I love it now. But when I was in grade 9, I hated that thing because I couldn't understand a word. It felt like a foreign language to me. We could be teaching contemporary artists. There's nothing wrong with that. I can't see a reason why Shakespeare needs to be a mandatory part of the classroom when we have great Canadian artists here. Like we have Thompson Highway, who wrote Res Sisters, which is an amazing piece of Indigenous Canadian art. And yeah, I'll hold it right there.
I'll jump in on that. I don't really know much about Shakespeare, to be honest. I don't know. I never really read any of the books or anything like that. But I do agree with Chris that we can definitely find other writers who are who have just as much talent, and still take the concepts or take the information or take the messages from what they're writing about and still teach it as if you were taking whatever you're taking from Shakespeare and teach it in the classroom. Why can't we use other examples? Why does that have to be the standard of how we're teaching? So I have to agree with Chris on that part for sure.
I'd like to pop in. I love this question. Love this question. You talk about decolonizing Shakespearean speak and in the context of the works and how the art has been weaponized, and we look at the way the dominant culture has taken so much art and weaponized it, to pin people against each other and to take over. When I was in my OAC writer's craft, I had a teacher who was called Mrs. Cosgrave. She was an English woman, and she had a picture of Shakespeare on her wall, but he was black, and she would I was the only black dude in the classroom, so she'd come up to me because she would perform pieces from the top of her desk, like she was like bringing the pieces alive to us, so I was having a different relationship with Shakespearean work because it was coming through this little English lady who was telling me that Shakespeare was really black. That he was like she wasn't speaking like this, but basically the way I was receiving it was, he was out in the street and he was spitting to working class people. Like he was being relatable to working class people, and he was creating language. There's so much there's so much like old English slang now to be found in there, and recently people have been like drawing the connection between Shakespeare and hip hop and more contemporary slang. So there's like this access point now into Shakespearean work and to kind of take that work back, peel back the layers so that it's not weaponized against like BIPOC and working class communities, and to use it as our asset. But I'll always remember going back to OAC Writers Craft and this little elderly woman showing me a poster of Black Shakespeare, and the way that changed my perception of theater. Because I was bringing that back into my neighborhood, saying, Shakespeare's Black, right? People were like, nah. I was like, nah, this English lady, she's my teacher. She got a picture of him on the wall. He's Black. And now I'm starting to go through his work and I'm looking at it with a different lens. And I think these are access points for us to be able to decolonize, what's become of Shakespearean content. So I like to go back and look at Othello and be like, okay, y'all were trying to use Othello as you're trying to weaponize that for indigenous folks. Like that is so backwards on the face of it. Like when you dig into that work and you understand what the story was and what was happening, you're like, nah, that doesn't make no sense. And when it doesn't make no sense, and we can build some context and some intelligence around the landscape of that, then we can start to change the whole scene, and we can like take theater back. Theater for the people.
That is so true. I think if more Black youth knew, or at least thought of Shakespeare as Black, more youth would have went into language arts or more forms of the arts.
And expanding on that, even just knowing that Black artists exist is such a huge thing in general, because like the Shakespeare as Black example is amazing. I love that because it makes so much sense. But like just speaking to what does exist, to what we actually have and what we've done, because it's been so much. Like there's so much that I'm still learning. Like there's so much that I don't know. And like, especially in the visual arts, I don't know a lot of Black visual artists. I don't know a lot of Black art other than some like basic tapestry and graffiti. But those need to be taught alongside European, like Eurocentric art.
It's so important to see ourselves in order to in order to vision a career in the arts. It's important to see other Black artists to know that we can do that. Because if we don't see it, then we're likely going to take the route of a lawyer or a doctor. Many organizations have been shifting their focus from the care of objects, such as sculptures, paintings, etc., to how have the arts supported and created a community of care for you? How has mental health and well-being become a central part of your practice or focus?
Was that question directed to everybody?
Yes, it was. I should have been clear. Sorry.
Okay, I would like to jump on that actually, especially the point of mental health. I mean, during this pandemic, there's been a lot of self-reflection and a lot of people realizing that they're dealing with certain things and, depression, anxiety, whatever the case is. And so I've actually taken an interest more into doing more art, especially on skateboards. And I find it really relaxing. And I really only pick it up when I'm like, okay, I need to relax for a bit. Let me kind of, take a break and paint on, the skateboard or whatever. And I find that really stress relieving and expressive as well for the individuals that do that. There's a photographer, his name is Mike Teeves, and for the skateboard shop, I give him grip tape, it's almost like sandpaper, it goes on the top of the board, and he paints it. And he said, this is really a stress reliever for me because I get to make art. And I said, you know what, Mike, take your time with it. I'm not going to rush you with it. And the cool thing is that we get an awesome piece that is created by this local artist. And then you have skateboarders that come into the shop and purchase it. So that's putting money into his pocket. And then he's also getting to, have that self-expression, and they're purchasing a piece of art that someone that someone created that's one of a kind. You're not getting that back. And so having opportunities to do like that, or art form, it doesn't have to be drawing or painting, right? It could be dancing, it could be photography, it could, whatever it is that you want to express it. I think it's very beneficial to mental health.
I know with ACT, one of our big um, one of our big programs is our social justice shows. And what we do is we in a circle, we gather people together. Usually we have a theme. Last year we did something with our seniors, and it was all about Alzheimer's and dementia. And what we wanted to do was educate the community on what it's like for the families to have someone with Alzheimer's and dementia, and what that looks like, what it looks like at the beginning, in the middle, and the end. And it's great. I think we need to see more of theater and art forms being used to tell those kinds of stories, because I think that's a great way to bring awareness to important issues. And I think it's a great medium to bring up some really awesome some very important social justice themes. So that is something that that's why I chose to volunteer for ACT. That was kind of the portion of their programming for that company. And I'm hoping more and more theater companies do that. But I think it's a great way to, one, connect with the community. You don't have to be a great actor to be in these shows, because we just want to hear stories. We want to show our audiences realism. We want to say, like, this is what's happening. We're going to teach you in a whole different new way, because we're going to show you through theater what it's like to go through some of these experiences. And at the end of all of our social justice shows, we always have a talk back where we let the audience ask questions. We let the actors on stage tell their stories, like how much of what they just performed was true to them versus telling somebody else's story, and what was it like to go through the process. And I think it's a really cool way to kind of bring the medium forward and educate and bring awareness to different themes.
Just on like mental health, the reason why I even started writing poetry was because I was really depressed as a kid. I went to Maryville when I was 15, and by the end of my time there, I filled basically an entire little notebook of just poems I would write like once or twice a day. And just because like that was an outlet. And a poem doesn't have to, the freeing thing about a poem is it doesn't have to be anything in particular. It can just be a list of words, it can just be like a journal, like free flowing. And that's something that like I kind of want to express about poetry, and like why I go to it. Because like it can be anything that you need it to be at the time. It can, like, a journal could be a poem. Who cares? There's no hard and fast rules about it. And a lot of times, because I like verse, I turn a lot of like poems I write into music in some way, shape, or form. So you can always expand further on like whatever you're doing and try to experiment with other things.
We oftentimes come to art seeking medicine, and out of that medicine comes art, so there's no separation between the two. We're born into this world, and we're carrying the stories and also the traumas of our ancestors, and we're carrying their songs with us, so naturally we're in a place to express in a very unique way, tapping into stories that only we can understand, and what happens is community comes together, so Moya was mentioning, with ACT, creating this safe space, to peel back the layers of that onion, to get inside that mental, those mental gears that we grind through, to heal. And if art isn't a safe space for healing and exploration, then it isn't anything at all. For me, I picked up art as a child to make sense of the world around me, or to communicate the things that I didn't have the language for. You know, I later on, I later on, identify myself as a poet because I know I can use word, language, and verse to communicate with people on a level that is accessible, and it opens up safe spaces for people to also share, their stories, their triumphs, their tragedy, but it's also an inspiration to connect, to the landscape and to the ancestors. So when we're talking about mental health, I think about the ancestors that were oppressed in a system of chattel slavery. I think of the ancestors that are in these hot fields, singing songs. That was medicine to push us forward. And one of the greatest gifts that was given back to us is that we have those songs, moving through our bones, in our bloodstream, and all we have to do is sit with ourselves long enough to let those words come through. And every word, every syllable is medicine for ourselves and somebody else. So it's very powerful, and it's very important that we understand the power of our art, our poetry, our song, our dance, our sculpture, however we express. It reaches out and it grabs people, and it makes people feel a certain way, and it's riddled in truth and authenticity, so that's very important. And I celebrate myself and everybody else that is that's working in this space, because it is a labor. It's a labor, and we have to re-traumatize ourselves, to move through our process of creativity, and we do it selflessly, and that makes us very special. So it's important that we love ourselves in that meaningful way and know that we are making an important contribution.
That was such a great response. I don't know how to follow up with that. I'm just gonna ask the next question. Each panelist incorporates performance into their work, from drumming, theater, poetry, and even skateboarding, which is a performative act. Performance is a transformative and has the power to affect social change. How does performance or activism influence your work? Do the two go hand in hand? This anyone can answer.
Well, it's quiet. Don't everybody answer at once now. I guess I'll jump on this. Uh, I think they definitely go hand in hand, and I actually kind of want to jump on what Chris was saying about. He said, poetry, it doesn't have to be anything specific. It could just be a list of words. And I really resonate with that, because I'm like, that's so true. Like, I've read poetry that was literally it's just words, and I'm like, yo, I feel this. This is deep, and it's just words. It's all it is, right? In terms of how skateboarding is an art form and an expression, it really is, because you look at a lot of skateboarders and there's so many different kinds. And people, a lot of times what people do is, if they're not choosing a skateboard deck based on the shape, they're looking at the graphic on the bottom. So that kind of speaks to what they like, their art form, right? And then you have different types of skateboarding. So you got people who longboard and they'll dance on the longboard. You have people who do freestyle skating. And it's just so expressive for everybody, to the point where I've seen people skateboard with one leg. With almost just, I've seen people skateboard with no lower body. I've seen people skateboard who are blind, and for them, and like, it's like, that's their outlet and that's their form of expression. And then, taking away from the act of the sport, there's been such a huge collection of just skateboard art in general, and not just painting on the boards, but actually using recycled boards to make things like rings, bottle can openers, beer can holders, tables, all kinds of art. So it's really interesting how these two things can go hand in hand. And then you can also get that from other types of art forms as well. So that's how I see it. I feel like it does go hand in hand. That's how I see it from the skateboarding perspective.
I find art is so freeing, and I feel like because of that, it goes it goes hand in hand with activism. It's this openness, it's raw, it's to be able to be whoever you want to be, say things that are from the heart, from your soul, from your gut. And I think that all is true to activism as well. So I think they can only go hand in hand, because they have the same bones to them, you know. Um, and and using art to get your point across. We all learn in different ways. Everyone learns in different ways. And so some people like reading books, some people like listening to podcasts, some people like watching something on the television, watching a documentary. This information is being told in the same way, just through different mediums. And I think when you're talking about activism, you need to reach as many people as possible, and using theater is just another form to reach people and touch people and get people to truly understand what you're fighting for. So yeah, I do think that they go together.
Once again, there's no, my belief, there's no separation between art and activism. There's no art without activism. There's no activism without art. And this is a shout out to the artists that are on the panel and all the artists that are tuned into this conversation right now. The way that we understand the material world is thanks to an artist. An artist has to look out, take in reality, and transcribe that in such a way that it's understood by the masses. So when we talk about like political movements, the importance of a political movement doesn't become important until artists stand up and communicate the importance of those movements. And this has oftentimes happened like through the spoken word, through the music. If we look back on movements, we can remember the music, the spoken word, the expression of dance, the signs that we create, the chants that we create. We can't separate the two of them because they're one and the same. Myself as an activist and as an artist, my strength is my spoken word. I can look out, I can capture the emotion, and then I can speak on behalf of a huge group of people, and they can tune into that, and then they can take that energy, and then they can speak to another group of people, and it kind of moves like that. So when we talk about activism and art, if it's true and it's authentic and it's pushing things forward, then that's us. That's us as artists. We're pushing that. And I'm of the belief that everybody is an artist. Whether we identify as artists or don't identify as artists. We have mathematicians who are creating art with numbers. We have engineers who are creating art. In physical structure. Architects. We're all artists. We're all creating the reality as we're existing in it, and I think that's a really special thing. And the result of that is justice and equity. And if we are going to even speak on behalf of justice, equity, representation, that's going to come out of our art. Because the moment that we identify the problem and pitch a solution, that's creative. That's creative thinking, and pushing that solution and convincing groups of people to move towards the powers of justice and equity and stronger collective communities. That's creative art. In 2013, I founded an organization called the Bloomfield House. The Bloomfield House was an expression of my art. Like that was a living piece of art. And I think everything we do, whether it's the skateboard shop and everything that happens inside that's an expression of art. That's a thought, and it was materialized. You know what I mean? And that goes out and it touches people, continues to touch people. So you can't remove the artist from the activism. Impossible.
Man,
Yes, that is.
that's
Oh, sorry, Chris. You wanted to say something?
yeah, that's like such a really good point. I love the notion that everybody is an artist, whether they like it or not. Because and something about art that I find a lot of people misconstrue is that it needs to be a career. You have to profit off of it. You don't have to. Art is just something that people do. Humans have been doing art since we've been alive, you know, and I think that needs to be reinforced that like people weren't selling their cave paintings, you know? We do it because it's an outlet and we need to make art. That's all it is. So I don't think there should be some like hierarchy or anything. I think like all artists are valid when they're being genuine.
Yes, I agree with both your points. There is no art without there is no activism without art. Um, with that being said, how would you use art to push your activism or to demonstrate your activism?
I last year, in the wake of this is before the riots and the protest in June. I started a project where I was actually talking about We Stand with Hong Kong, about all the police brutality that was going on there, and I was linking that historically to how police brutality and how police in the state have always reacted to people being oppressed. And a friend and I created a little short film that we put on our like social medias, and that was a way that I knew that I could help by like drawing those comparisons between like what was going on in Hong Kong, what happened in Tiananmen Square. Even just saying that out loud, I'll probably never be allowed to go to China. Um, but like what happened in Tiananmen Square, all the pictures of like that and what's happening in Brazil, and like and to learn from each other, to learn how to combat this authority that's always trying to push us down. I think I like to use art as an educative tool in activism and to teach us how to act, not like, you know, program and brainwashing, but like just to guide us in the right direction. And yeah, and that's one way. Another way is just I I'm angry a lot of the time and I make music about it. And maybe I'll share that one day, maybe I won't, but right now a lot of what I'm writing is very political based because that's where my mind is at. And that's where my anger is coming from.
I feel as though art is about reclaiming space, mental space, physical space, and that's that's like the mechanism of the activism that's also tied into the art. You know, I think of my ancestors having language taken from them, so they couldn't communicate, having the drum taken away, so they couldn't communicate, having any tool that could possibly help one person communicate with another person or one community communicate with another community taken away, and then all you have left is your creativity, you know, taking up space, you know, being in the presence of the systems that are oppressing you and placing your body in those gears to stop that machine. That's the art. That's our activism. You know, when we go into a store and we get followed around the store because we might be stealing something, you know, our activism is putting our chin up high, you know, putting that smile on our face and saying you couldn't break through the resilience of my skin with all of your oppressive tools in the world. And that is like an act of activism. That's art and activism. You know, so I carry with me every time I stop into a dominant culture institutional space and express my truth. That's activism. As a poet and a spoken word artist, I can walk into any space, I can step up on any soapbox, and I can give anybody 3 to 5 minutes of a spoken word piece. And nobody can take that from me. That's me leaving my imprint in that place where I wasn't supposed to be in the first place. And now you can't take that away. And that sets an example and a precedent for the next person to come behind me and do the same thing. And once we all begin to do that, we completely change a landscape through our creativity. And that's activism. That's a revolution.
I think it's also I think it's also we want to hear like I said before, it's about the storytelling too, and being able to not only listen but tell stories in unique and different ways to really get that point across, um, and be able to have people and have audiences empathize with, with the problem, and be able to put themselves for that brief period of time into the shoes of the person being oppressed, the person that is being bullied, the one with Alzheimer's, whatever it is. They get to, for that hour to 2 hour show or production, or or seeing a visual art piece, to be able to empathize and be there, so that way they'll maybe be able to think to themselves, yeah, I need to take some action, I need to do something. I think it helps to pull at those heartstrings. It helps to just bring those people into that situation on a deeper level.
Yes, we're having
Wow.
a great conversation here, but we have to go into the Q&A portion of things. The audience have some questions to ask. One question is, has the momentum of the collective movement toward justice brought any sense of empowerment when engaging with white spaces? And do you feel more seen when taking up space in those spaces?
I'll start with this because I mean everybody has a unique experience here. Um, I was I was raised around whiteness, and I'm like white passing on the phone. Um, so I've never, like, not never. So most oftentimes, like in school and such, I it hasn't been a huge problem for me to take up space. I've always been confident in taking up that space. But that's because my parents kind of rejected blackness and rejected my indigeneity. I can't pronounce that word properly. I'm sorry. Um, so do I feel more empowered to take up space now? Yes, because now I feel like I can actually be more. I feel like I'm allowed to be more in tune with my culture than I would have been before. Now I can talk about Chuck Berry and not just how the people who stole Chuck Berry's music. You know.
I definitely want to touch on that topic as well. I wouldn't I wouldn't say that I feel more empowered. I would say that I feel more, I feel like it's, I don't want to say acceptable, but it's just I feel like everybody as a collective, more BIPOC people have been uh they feel like it's okay now to be themselves, and the term unapologetically black is going around, and it's never, I don't feel like we were ever taking up space in a white system or whatever the case was, because we had politicians and activists who were speaking out regardless. They didn't care anyways. You know what I mean? You look at Malcolm X, you look at Martin Luther King, and you look at Rosa Parks. They didn't care, right? But I feel like before, maybe there was a lot of people as a collective, we were scared because when we did speak up and when we did act a certain way, we got treated a certain way. And now people, when we speak up, we still get treated that way. But because it's such a larger collective, more people are like, no, forget that. I'm going to be unapologetically black. I'm going to say what I want to say, because for too long it's been one way and everything needs to change. And now that we've done that, it's not just people who have a darker skin tone, but it's also Caucasian people who are like, no, this has been wrong for so long, because there's people who may not have, who are not BIPOC and who have seen the injustices, but even they were too afraid to stand up and say something about it as well, right? Because maybe they would have gotten treated differently from from their peers. So I feel like now it's a larger collective to where I wouldn't say it's more empowered, but there's less fear of something happening. It's people, they don't care anymore because they're not standing for the stuff that's been going on. That's why that's why we've had protests not just in the United States, but in Toronto, in Windsor, Bliss. We even ran a protest as well called a push for peace, right? And in the UK there was protests, in Jamaica there was protests as well. So the whole world is coming together and saying, no, this is enough. And because of that, because of such a larger collective, you have more BIPOC people who are saying, yeah, you know what, I'm going to be unapologetically Black or unapologetically Indigenous or whatever the case is, whatever your background is. So that's just my take on that question.
First and foremost, big ups to the activists that hit the street and put in that work. I've been really proud over the last year or so, seeing the work that people have been putting in, and it's good to see. It's important to see. If there's one thing I learned from elders and ancestors, it's don't believe the hype of dominant culture. There have been big Black liberation movements for centuries. For centuries. We can look back to our Marianne Shadd, our Chloe Cooley, our Viola Desmond, Dr. Howard McCurdy, Rosemary Brown, and the list goes on and on and on of activism, like specifically, in Canada, right? But what happens, and we have to be really sharp about this, is that these institutions of the dominant culture will co-opt your activism, and they will sell your activism to you without you knowing that's going on. And you'll be in the streets with signs and chanting, and then you're getting a sponsorship from Nike, and you're buying 100 pairs of Nike shoes, or you're getting a sponsorship from some other big corporation. And we got to be careful that we're not getting bamboozled and hoodwinked. We have to make sure that our organizing is authentic and it's close, and that we're seeing the residuals come out of it. Because when we talk about justice, and we talk about equity, and we're talking about representation, it's easy for these big dominant culture institutions to sprinkle a little something on there and make you feel like you did something, because we've been working so hard for so long to push it forward, that we'll take it as a success. My thing is, success for us is when we as a BIPOC community, Black, Indigenous, people of color community, we start to really build some economic infrastructure that is going to provide opportunities for us. When we have our own galleries, our own schools, our own banks, when we have a footprint in the system and we're no longer dependent on everybody else, then we're starting to make progress. And we seen what happens when Black folks come together and make and push for economic greatness. You end up with Tulsa. You end up with your own government dropping bombs on you to destroy everything that you built up. And we have all these years under our belts. We have all this experience under our belts. We're brilliant. We're talented. We have the resources now to build together. Now what we have to do is we have to practice trusting each other, loving each other, building with each other. Because those are the jewels. I have to be able to trust my money in the hands of y'all. You have to be able to trust your money with me so that we can build something for the generations coming behind us, because we are too easily bought and sold, because we've been too desperate for too long. Like, how many of us have been just giving our art away for a long time and then hungry all the time? We have to think about those pieces. And folks who are in position of power, they need to just open their ear and understand that we're here, we're smart, and we're coming for ours. We're going to get ours. We have to. Our ancestors put us in a position where we have to. we have our art as our tools. We have the resources of this contemporary world. We're gonna do big things, but the most important thing we can do is we have to hold each other up. We have to support each other. We have to see each other. Because if we don't see each other, nobody else has to see us. We have to see each other. We have to support each other. You know, y'all are doing a show. We need to show up. We gotta put our money down there. You know, even if we can't afford to, we have to give something, something. Even if it's our time, we have to do something to push this forward. Otherwise, we just gonna keep on chasing our tails. And I'm not saying that our ancestors before us were chasing their tails. They was doing real work and they took real bruises. You know what I mean? Work. They set us in a position where it's going to be a little easier for us to do it. We got to set up a position so that the kids coming behind us, they get to do it a little bit easier. But we have to build like real infrastructure. Like we have to position ourselves with some economic power so that we can take care of each other in a meaningful way. Because whether or not we want to engage with capitalism, you know, that's what we're surrounded by. You know, that's the jungle that we're living in right now, and we have to master that system so we can liberate ourselves from it.
That is such a great point. We also have a question from Abby, and this is directed to Moya. What's the process behind creating a social justice show, and how would one get involved with ACT?
So our process, like I said, we always have a different theme every year. Like before last year, we had mental health. We've done youth and substance abuse. We've done different things like that. So always check on our website. We're constantly kind of updating that to say what the theme is, and our website's actwindsor.com. Yeah, or you can shoot us an email at info@actwindsor.com as well. We do one social justice show a year because we write them ourselves. It takes us a couple months to do that. How it is once we have our theme, we do a post on social media, and usually to schools too. We have contacts with the Greater Essex County District School Board. We send some information out to the school board as well, just kind of looking for people who want to tell their stories. So we bring them in. We have about 6 to 8 workshops where we just sit and we talk. It's all run by Chris Rabideau, and he has a couple different people that work with him, and he does some amazing work with pulling stories out of people. Then he goes home with like a team of 3. There's 3 to 4 writers. They gather all the stories, all the information. They sit down and they put together a script out of that. And it's really nice. It's really everybody works together. Once they have a script, they bring it back to the group, and then as a group, everybody kind of works on it together to see, you know, what stays and what can be taken out and stuff like that. So that's kind of the process for it. And then we do two weekends of shows and we present it. We'd love to. We're always trying to raise money to be able to present it to areas. You know, we're trying to get out into Essex County and Leamington and Kingsville with our shows as well, because we don't want to just stick with Windsor, especially with some of the content that we have. Our seniors really want to get out to some of the retirement homes, especially out in Kingsville and so forth. So that's kind of what we're hoping for when we're back up and running, to kind of make sure that we're able to tour our social justice shows as well.
That sounds so amazing. Love to hear the work that you're doing. We have a question from, sorry if I say your name wrong, Imogen. What can larger organizations, art spaces do to commit to activism within their programs?
I know. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sasha. Did you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick. I think that larger organizations should connect with the community to see what the smaller organizations are doing, and do it with, not just because it's going to look good on the bigger organization's part, but actually do it so that you as a larger organization, you're working with a smaller company that actually aligns with your goals and your visions and what you're doing and what you're trying to bring into the community. You don't just do it because of money or publicity or whatever. Like there should be some type of passion or purpose behind it. And so I think that's probably the best way. And I was on a panel yesterday and we had a similar question to this, because there's so many smaller groups that a lot of people don't know about that are doing amazing things, and they're going out there in the community, but the large organizations don't know about that because maybe they're looking in the wrong areas, right? So, get back into the community, see what the smaller groups are doing, and if you believe that what they're doing aligns with your vision, then absolutely see how you can contribute to what they're doing as well.
And just to add to that, there's so many, there's the theater community. They all know what's going on within the theater community. The art community know what's going on within the arts community. We need to reach the communities outside of those. We need more people in the audience. So if the larger organizations can share and spread the word of some of this stuff that's happening with the smaller organizations to get to a wider reach of people in the city, I think that's what we need to be doing more of. Because I don't know how many times I come up to people in Windsor and they're like, there's nothing going on. I'm like, are you kidding me? There is so much going on in this city. So we just need to get more awareness of what is happening here out there. And I think it's just a matter of everyone sharing information and supporting each other and investing in each other to get the word out there on a wider, bigger scale.
And I think any organization, big or small, should be asking themselves some questions. What do they have to offer? What do they want to do? Who do they support? And do they genuinely want to support, or do they just want to be seen as somebody who's supportive? Because there's a huge difference between like being an ally or being like a performative ally. And it's very, very obvious. Somebody in the comments, the chat, they said they're talking about rainbow capitalism. And because capitalism will always find a way to monetize our activism and our rebellion against it. So how can we reevaluate what our values are to fit within what the community needs, as opposed to just what we want to do or what we need to do to make a profit?
There's so much to be said in regards to that question. That's such a big question. Imogen, thank you so much for asking such a question. And I know time is limited, so I'm gonna try to be as quick as possible. But it's so important for larger organizations to comb through your history and your policy and your procedure, and to be accountable for your sins if they're there. Deconstruct that organization and then rebuild it in the framework of anti-racism, justice, equity, representation from the ground up. It doesn't matter if you are 10 years old, 40 years old, 50-year-old organization. Deconstruct it, decolonize, understand that the world is shifting right now, and you need to be part of that wave. Otherwise, you are going to become irrelevant and you won't have an organization anymore. You have to be brave enough to lose everything, you know? You have to be brave enough to give up the privilege that you have. You know, many big organizations are also tied to big donors who are going to be able to stir a board of directors in a certain way, you know, based on the economic support that's there. Look at your board of directors. Does it reflect the city that you're living in, the communities that you're living in? You know, look at your past executive directors. You know, does it represent the city? Does it represent the work that you're doing? You know, is it doing anything to move us forward as a community? And if it's not, tear it down and rebuild it. Don't be afraid to tear it down and rebuild it. Don't put your wants before the community. Don't be so worried about if we deconstruct our organization then we're going to lose this funding, or we're not going to have a job for this person. What we need to think about is collective justice and moving forward. Like, how can we create the best community possible for the people who are coming behind us? And there's a lot of hard truths. And the most important thing that y'all can do is be brave, because it's not easy. You know, people of the BIPOC community, it's not easy for us. We don't, you know, we don't get a red carpet when we roll out of bed, and the world isn't always nice. You know, we have to fight for opportunities. We need y'all to fight with us through those opportunities. It's not a, it's not us versus you anymore. It's us coming together and creating something brand new. And I think that's beautiful.
We have one final question. How can we involve the youth of today at a primary level to get a better understanding of their past history? And does it start in the home?
I love this question because education is really important to me. I was going to be a teacher at some point in my life. Okay, not enough about me. I think that the education around primary students needs to be more centered around them, not centered around the university style where it's like they're all facing one person, or they need to be able to discuss themselves and their own history if they know it. And use the students' history as part of the curriculum. Use they can write, if they can write a report on themselves and their history, let them do that. Let them engage with their own culture, and stop forcing us to paint I don't even remember what I was painting in primary school, but just letting us do, and letting primary students do what their family has been doing for generations before them. I think that's a really good place to start.
Yeah, if I could just jump in on that question as well. I would say involving the youth, the best way to do that is to actually interact with them and learn from them. For me, as a young child, it was always like, no, sit down, be quiet. This is not your place. This is adult conversation. This is no, you're supposed to learn stuff in school, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? It was always kind of like that, where now that I have two sons, sometimes I am like that with them, but I also have to look at them and learn from them, because my son has taught me things before and I'm like, hold on, let me fact check this. So I'll give you an example. He likes dinosaurs. And he said, Mom, that's an ankylosaurus. I've never heard of that dinosaur before. I went on YouTube. I said, yeah? Oh, wow, he's right. That is an ankylosaurus. So we gotta look at them and learn from them, because we forget how to be kids. We forget how to be youthful, because you get all these responsibilities as an adult, right? As a grown up, and we forget how to be youthful. So we have to look at them to see what they're learning, because it's gonna come a point in time where, with all this technology, we're not gonna know how to do that kind of stuff. And guess what? We're gonna have to learn from them, right? And so I think that's the best way to involve the youth. Actually give them a stage to speak and teach you what they know and learn from each other. That's the best way to involve them.
I also think we need to make it more interactive, and you know, Chris is right. Like, it shouldn't just be about you know, showing them what, you know, what theater, what art, all this stuff looks like. Have them take part in it. Sit down on the floor and get messy with them. You know, sing, dance, bring drums in, give them each a drum, let them each just experiment and have fun and be creative, because I think they'll get more out of that and enjoy it more than just being talked at. Especially at that age. And I think I know, you know, I had a teacher once, I think it was probably grade 2 or 3. And for Black History Month, he asked all of us to find, we had to ask our parents who was someone, you know, a Black leader who was Canadian, or, you know, that really, you know, inspired them in some way. So it was interactive with our families too. So I got to talk to my mom about, you know, some of the people that she loved. And then we had to talk about that. We had to come up with 5 points to say something in front of our class about it. So it was nice that we were able to bring it home, into the home as well as a family, and make it interesting. You know, I think I dressed up, you know, and I did some, you know, I can't even remember who I was doing it on, but I remember dressing up for it. And I remember sitting with my mom and saying, like, I have to make sure that I look exactly like this person. So we had to go through the closet and look for stuff and everything. But, you know, I remember that aspect of it, because it was so interactive. You know, it wasn't just sitting and watching a play, or just, you know, focusing on one thing. It was a combination of a couple things that made it interesting and lasting.
I just want to jump back in real quick, because I know TJ is gonna have some gems to drop, because he's been dropping some really good ones throughout this panel. And I just wanted to touch on a point that Chris had said, which was, you know, when you step into the classroom, it's always all these desks here, and then everyone's facing the teacher. When I was in university, I took a African American Studies class, and it was really cool because my professor you'd always walk in, it was late evening class, and he'd just be there eating his lunch, and he was so nonchalant, and he's like, okay, come in. All right, you guys rearrange the desks. And we would always sit in a circle, because it was about us in the classroom. It wasn't just about him teaching us. It was about us teaching each other, and us teaching him, and him teaching us. So we were all sitting in a cipher. And I feel like if they were to rearrange the classroom setting to where it's more everybody's learning from each other, and not just always focus on the teacher, that's who you're supposed to be talking to, but you know what I mean, that kind of situation, then it would give a better platform, and maybe also allow the youth to actually enjoy going to class more. Because for me, with that class, I love going to that class, because of the classroom setup was different, and the teacher was he was a little bit more relaxed, and allowed the class to teach ourselves and teach everybody in the class.
You know, children are good medicine. Children are good medicine. And when we interact with children, it's important that we are mindful that oppressed people oftentimes oppress people. You know, and we put young people in a very vulnerable position. And if we look at the way that spaces of education are institutionalized, oftentimes it's very cut and dry, and not as supportive as it needs to be. It doesn't tap into the uniqueness and the individuality of the young person. And for us as adults, you know, there's a very thin line between guiding a child through their world and absorbing that child into our world. And oftentimes our approach to young people is we want to pick them out of their world and bring them into our world, because we feel as though our world is a safe one, because we've occupied it for so long. But then that child loses a piece of himself, loses a piece of their identity, and then they spend their whole life trying to find it again. And when they finally do, they have that aha moment, that liberation moment, you know, but they lost so much. So as educators, facilitators, adults, parents, it's so important that we don't underestimate the children. You know, we don't look at them as though we have everything to teach them and they have nothing to offer, because it's oftentimes the opposite. Oftentimes they have such a keen observation for the world around them that they can see the trees from the forest, and all we see is blinking lights. You know, we're not in a position to really mentor in a meaningful way if we cannot respect, appreciate, and uplift the uniqueness and the intelligence of children. So when we find ourselves in a classroom space, like I have the opportunity to bring creative arts into elementary schools through an organization called Arts Can Teach. and there's several ways to approach that. One of them is you are entering into their space, so do so accordingly. Be humble, let them know I appreciate you for letting me come into your space, and then take it from there. Oftentimes we want to pull that hierarchy because we have been colonized. We're working on decolonizing, but we situate ourselves in hierarchy, so we think we're above them, and then we treat them that way. And we can't, like, you can't grow a garden that way. You can't plant a seed and then throw a garbage bag on top of it and expect to have flowers. It's not going to happen. So it's so mindful that we respect the space, the world, the reality of the children, and as adults, guide them through their world. Don't don't pull them into yours. You have yours, they have theirs. Y'all can move parallel, but we are going to destroy young people if we try to turn them into us because, we're us.
I'm just going to jump in here. We are coming at the close of our panel discussion tonight. I wanted to thank all of our panelists for their insight, their experience, and just sharing and being so open and honest with all of us. I want to thank everyone who's tuning in on Zoom and on Facebook Live as well. So much engagement, some really great questions. So thank you, thank you. And I was taking notes, and there's so many beautiful gems and discussion happening. And we can't wait to welcome everyone and all of you back into the Art Gallery of Windsor once we reopen. Fingers crossed and knock on wood, that will be soon. I wanted to thank Making It Awkward as well, Jessica. It's been a pleasure working with you on the second edition of Let's Talk. You're a wonderful collaborator, and thank you so much for your help and support. I'd also like to thank Princess Doe for joining us tonight. And on behalf of the board and the staff of the Art Gallery of Windsor, again, I'd like to extend my thanks to our panelists, TJ, Chris, Moya, and Sasha for being a part of this discussion and sharing with us your experience. As mentioned during the talk, during many points, we need art. Art is an outlet. Art creates and supports communities. Art gathers, it nurtures, and it brings us together. And we're so grateful that everyone is with us along this journey. There are some really great questions in the Q&A as well, so we hope to continue on this discussion on Facebook and through many panels to come. I will drop this in the chat before we end our evening, but to find out more about our panelists, you can visit our website. I've put the link in the chat. If you participated in this discussion tonight, you can also fill out an online survey and tell us what you thought about your experience. So again, thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Princess Doe. I should probably put the gallery view here so everyone can see TJ's message, but yes, go visit ArtSite. It's a wonderful community and artist-run center in Windsor. It's a vital part of the arts community. Support our local businesses, support Bliss Skate Shop, support ACT Theater, and thank you again to everyone. And we hope to see you soon at the Art Gallery of Windsor. So take care and enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, and we are going to end it there. Thank you, everyone, and take care. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Bye. Have a good night.
Good night.
Goodbye,
Thanks,
everyone.
you guys all have a good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Board.
Goodbye.
Bye.